Hello everyone, good evening. So I'm Aditya Gupta and I'm with my friend Yatharth and Joseph here, and we're going to get you through game development, a very interesting topic, and I'm sure most of you are here to learn how it works and how it goes. So let's start with a bit of theory. Yeah, let's go to introduction of game development and understanding how games designs, right, and how they work. So the essence of game dev is the design and construction and the developer mindset. So, what is game development? It's more than just code or graphics. It's the design behind it, the programming behind it, art and animation behind it, audio, and the player psychology. If you are going deeper into it, today in this lesson, we are just going to go into the programming part, of course. But design and art and animation are much more important, I would say, than the programming part because games are more about the artistic side, the creative side, than the coding part of it. Coding is just a means to bring it to life. So first we start with design. We like all the games design, we start with it. So we start with the movement, how combat will work, maybe how the level layouts are. We design something called the design development document, and we basically lay out the whole idea of the game, how it will work, how it will go, and what we want in it. Next comes the programming part. So we program what we want in it. We use a software. Maybe in this session we are going to use Unity, by the way, and we are going to use C# scripting for it to work. Then the art and animation. So we get into the art and the animation side of it. So we decide the animated category. This is all through Blender or maybe another art software. We won't be going in deeper into this, but this is something to keep in mind. Then comes the audio and the immersion. So audio and immersion, people usually leave it out because it's not that important. That is what most people think, but that is not the case. Audio is as much important as anything because it kind of brings the polish from the game, the polish what we need. Then we go into player psychology. So we understand the user behavior, the rewards, the difficulty curves, the feedback loops, if you're going deeper into it. But as a beginner, you don't need to understand much about player psychology. Then the player experience, so how the player enjoys the game, because we are designing the game, but even like at the end of the day, we are not the players of it, right? It's the audience, so we need to know what the audience likes and loves. So games can also be used as interactive systems. So we know movies and series and all that, we watch it and we enjoy it, but what if they get more immersive, right? And the way we can do it is through games. We There are something called novel games where it's like choice, you can choose where the story leads to. You have like multiple choices and you're like, if I do this, the story goes this route, maybe if I do this, it goes another way, and so on. So difference between game design and game development is that game design is basically everything about how the player feels, how the game looks, how the game looks, how the game feels, so how the game loop runs, what is the input, what is the process of it, then what's the output. Now what is a game engine? Game engine is basically the method to get your ideas into an actual game. So if you have a really great idea, but unless you know how to use the engine, you will never be able to perfectly execute it as you wanted it to. You may have something great in mind, but if you are not good in using a game engine, you are not going to make the next Among Us or maybe the next GTA even. So what is a game engine? They basically do everything for you. They do the rendering part, the physics part, the input, the audio, the asset management, the optimization. They handle everything for you, so you don't have to code it all from scratch. There are different engines out there. We have Unity, we have Godot, we have Unreal Engine, and it really depends on your use case, what you want to use. Because Unity is very easy to start. Godot is kind of lightweight, and Unreal Engine has high performance. It's a very common misconception that Unreal Engine doesn't have high performance, rather the opposite. But that really depends on the person using the engine and not the engine itself. So Unity has the key strengths and its common uses and its limitations. So it's easy to learn. It's ideal for beginners. It uses C# for scripting. That is why in this session we're going to cover Unity, because it's the most beginner friendly engine. but it also has some limitations because we can't achieve those high level of visuals that usually you see in modern AAA games. But usually, as solo developers, we don't really care about that. But if you're working in a very big organization, you don't need it. Godot is very much like Unity, but it is very lightweight. So while Unity may take maybe 1 GB or 2 GB, Godot will take 200 MB of it. So that's the major strong point of Godot, why people usually shift from Unity to Godot, because it has this lightweight stuff to it. But the another thing is that it's source code. So you don't, like with Unity, it's occupied by the source code. So you can induce new rules and you can't really help it. You can't do anything against it. That's not the case with Godot. Then comes Unreal Engine, and it gives the high end and industry grade power that usually higher at a higher level of game dev you require. So maybe if you're working in an organization, some popular games like it's Split Fiction, they are made using Unreal Engine. So why Unreal Engine? Because it's industry grade, realistic lighting, and robust architecture, and it uses blueprints. Those are something that Unreal uses, but we won't get into those because we're not going to be using Unreal today. So it's a matter of what comes next. It's for Unreal, but we can cover this in Unity. So let's get into Unity now. We have had enough of the presentation, right? I'll start sharing my screen and I'll show you how it works. So while it boots up, I'll just give a basic breakdown in Unity. So Unity, you need to install Unity Hub for Unity to start. So you need to create an account for it. So I'll just go through the process itself, right? Can we get the live screen on the screen right now? Yeah, so here we go. So this is what you see first when you open Unity, and you need to go into, if you already have an account, you can go into sign in, or if you're new to Unity, you can also create an account. Create an account is not a lot of setup. It's not that difficult. So don't worry about it. You can just sign in with your Google account and it will work as normal. So here I'll just sign into my account. So this is the first thing that you see when you open. It will ask you to agree to the documents. That's why I said that this is an engine that is private, right? So they can make changes and they can have their own licenses. So say if you want to release a big game, then Unity has its reasons that you need to upgrade to a pro version to actually release proper games. And then in that pro version, there's also the need of giving some profit to the Unity developers. Yeah. So we have a hub update. You can do that. We don't need to right now. So this is the main window that you see. This is the main thing that you see when you open first, and we'll show you the setup guide, how to install everything. You can install from here. We'll show you the option to. But right now I have a version installed already. So I will just open it through that. I'll go into projects, and the first thing that you can do is go to new projects, select the editor version that you want to use, and then if you scroll down, you can see a lot of these templates. So Unity has a lot of these templates to offer you, and it's basically making your work easier. Say you were going for like a VR multiplayer game, then if you were going to start from scratch, right, it will be a lot of work. You need to set up a lot of things in Unity, a lot of add-ons, a lot of plugins, a lot of packages. This is all handled by Unity if you start with the template itself. And you have other more templates like this competitive action multiplayer, the 2D platformer micro game, then the FPS micro game. So these two are actually learning projects, so you can open them and explore like how actual games are built. So these are done by Unity itself. And if you want to get started with Unity from the basics, like a course, I would suggest this Essentials Pathway by Unity. It takes you from scratch and gets you to a somewhat beginner level where you can start exploring yourself and see what Unity is all about. Then, but most developers, right, we start with either Universal 2D or Universal 3D. So Universals is also called URP. URP stands for Universal, and this pipeline is basically for a better graphics. Before, Unity used to start with the built-in graphics mode, and it was not good. So we started with the Universal one. And if you are going for a 2D game, then you'll choose 2D. If you are going for a 3D game, you'll choose 3D. Let's start with 2D today. I'll just show you, like, it can be anything between 2D, 3D, anything. But I'll just show you how the project is done. So you can choose an organization, will just show up default. Then you can choose your project name. Let's say I call this practice project, right? So we call this practice project, and you can choose the location where you want to save it. I'm sure you already know this. Create project. You don't need to tick this box for Unity use version control, because we do use GitHub usually for this, and GitHub offers everything you need to do. GitHub, when you're making a repo in GitHub, right, you always need to add a git ignore file for Unity so that it does not create very large sizes of projects. So I clicked on that. Now the Unity file is booting up. I'll share that with you. Yeah, so can we get that on the screen now? So this is the window you'll see when you start creating a project. It starts from scratch. It will create a lot of packages, dependencies, add-ons, everything. So this part usually takes time. It's because it makes everything from scratch, right? So there's a lot of things to do here. And while this is happening, I'll just give you a rundown of what we had done till now. We open Unity Hub, right? We download Unity Hub and not Unity Editor itself. You can search online for Unity Hub and you download that. You open it, right? You run the setup. It's not a huge file, it's like around 300 MB or something. You open it, you run the project, you sign in, log in, or if you like want to create a new account, you create account, and then you get to the get setup page. You can download Unity Editor through that. Always make sure that while you are downloading, you include the modules that are needed for download. So I'll show you what I mean by that. I'll just show Unity Hub again, okay? Yeah. So I'll get that on the screen now. Yeah. So during Hub, while you're installing, you probably see some options. So I'll just show you how it goes. Right. This is the editor that you see when you open install editor, and you see this window. And here you have to install basically. So you choose one. Let's say the latest one is Unity 6.3, which Unity itself recommends. And LTS here stands for long-term support, by the way. So basically, long-term support LTS versions of Unity editors are basically ones that go for a long time. The Unity supports and backs for a long time and brings updates to them. The rest of the versions are somewhat, you can say, kind of experimental versions. So they release update, but they don't really update it further. They release a newer version, but the ones that are LTS, they keep updating it to match the optimizations. So if I click on install, this is the options that I see. You need to install Microsoft Visual Studio Community. It can be any version. It does not have to be 2022. You can go with the 2025 version, I believe. So, and then you can choose the platforms you want to release your game on. So it can be Android, it can be web, it can be Windows. So for a starter pack, Windows is enough. You don't need to go into the development for Android and iOS. You can later download it as well. It is not necessary that you download them at the beginning only. So since I have it installed, I won't go into it. I'll just go into the editor itself now. So as you see now, this is the editor. This is how it will look when you open it, right? Okay, can we get the screen on stage? Have to be this way. It might be a different layout as well. So this is the default one. Yeah. This is the default layout. You can change layouts by dragging windows. So you can maybe take this over to here, maybe take this over to here, right? You can customize it as you like. You don't have to follow the custom one. But for now, I'll just start with the default one. And anytime if you want to go back, you can just click on the default one and you're voila, you're back. So this is the template for URP, basically a universal render pipeline. And this is the input system. This area here is the assets window. So anything that you want to import, anything that you want to basically put into the game, maybe any audio, art, anything, you import it over here. So easier method to do is just go here, import new asset. If you click on it, you can import anything, maybe a photo, maybe audio, anything. And these usually we don't use audios and images as they are. We need to kind of change the settings to kind of pertain them to our game, so it needs to adhere to the guidelines of a game. So this here is basically a extension of the assets window. It shows all the folders, everything. So right now we have the sample scene, the scene right now we are in. So this is the sample scene. Scene is basically, you can say, like a level. So this is the first level, and if you want to switch to another level, you can always just create a new scene and switch to it. And you can always link those two levels. So you can create two scenes and basically the transition between them. So anytime you finish first level, you go to the second level. These are the settings for it. You don't need to mess with them right now. They're just about the animation side of it. So you can basically change the volume profile. So you have chromatic aberration, you have color adjustments, you have depth of field, all the visual side of the project, they are present here. And always remember that in a Unity project, this window needs to be checked post processing. If you don't check this, these post processing won't apply. So always keep this checked. And in case you were having a blank area here, you just need to open this drop button and you get all the components that are in the scene right now. This is called the hierarchy window, by the way. So hierarchy window is basically all the objects that are in your scene right now. So anything that is in your level, it can be the player, it can be object, it can be a photo, it can be audio, anything that is there, it's present there. So right now we have the main camera. So this is the main camera. We have the directional light. Directional light is basically one main source of light that illuminates our whole scene. And then the global volume, which is the post processing itself. So you can change the bloom options, the tone mapping, everything, right? So another thing is, how did I move around this area, right? It's actually very intuitive. You just need to hold the right mouse button, right? If you hold the right mouse button, you can move your mouse then to look around you from a single position. And if it were just as a game, you can press W, A, S, and D to move around. So just like in a video game, like a third person controller, you can basically press the right mouse button, hold the right mouse button, and then move around to wherever you like using WASD, look around, up, down, anything. So you can go here and there. Or another method of traversing is pressing the middle mouse button and shifting the whole scene. So if you don't have access to a keyboard, you can press the right button to look around, then middle button to shift around the scene. Left clicking on any object brings it up in the hierarchy. So you can see all the settings that it has, the render type, the post-processing settings, the environment, background type, the skybox. So skybox is the default sky that Unity has. You can also create your custom skybox, and you can also change to solid colors. But we'll stick to the skybox, custom skybox. And yeah, that's it about Unity. So this is the inspector window, by the way. I think I did not mention this, but this is the inspector window where you see all the properties of any object that you click, be it in the hierarchy window or anything that is in the scene itself. So these default volumes. And this is the game window. So you actually see the actual game, the point of view the player will see, while scene is the view that you can see and move around and edit in. And this is the game window we can use. You can also just drag it right here. So you see both of them side to side. And that's it for the overview of the Unity window. Next, now my friend Yathat will take over and teach you how to go further into game development. Yathat, you can take over now.
Yes. One second. Okay. Uh, I hope you can see my screen. So, since Aditya has already covered the basics of the Unity editor, we can now start building our game. So, to build our game, we first need the player character. So, to do that, the plus button over here allows us to create all the types of objects that are available in the Unity editor. Since we're making this game in a 3D, we're making this game 3D, we're going to use a 3D object and then capsule. So this has created a capsule at a random location, which we can reset by right clicking on the transform and clicking reset. So now this is our player character. This has a capsule collider, which allows this object to interact with the other physics objects in the scene. Uh, we can rename this to player, right? And now to make the ground, we can use a cube, reset it, and then by clicking on these we have different toggles. So this one is to move the object. This allows us to move the object on the 3 axis. That is, the green one is y, the blue is z, and the red is x-axis. So this toggle allows us to rotate the object on those axes, and this toggle allows us to scale it. So we can scale this to create the flow 20, and then we can move this so that the player lies above it. So as you can see, the player lies above it. This as well has a box collider. So if we add a rigid body to the player, this will simulate the physics on the player by making it fall. All right. Now, so to differentiate the player and the ground in the game view, we can add materials to the player. So by right clicking in the assets tab, we get this drop down and this create and then material. Now by dragging this material onto the object we want, we can now change the color to to the desired color we want. And now in the game view, if we hit play, you can see the capsule falls down due to it having a rigid body and collides with the floor. Now to enable or to allow the player to move around, we need to make a script. So to do that, again, we need to right click in the assets folder, click on create, and then mono behavior script. So mono behavior is the type of C# scripts used in Unity to define behavior that defines the Unity game objects. So by clicking on this, we can create a new script and rename it. So as you can see, this is the new script. And by dragging the script onto our player object, now the player object has the player script. Now by writing code in the player script, we can enable the input and allow the player to move around in the scene. Yes, so now Joseph will take care or will help you guys understand the coding part of this. Okay, before we get into yes, before we get into the coding part, let's discuss the 3D modeling or the art side of the games. Uh, okay, so how does a game come to life? A, a game comes to life by the 3D assets, and the 2D sprites we create. Now, these 3D assets all start from a cube. A single cube is changed, the shape is changed, materials are added to it to create the final game ready object. Now let's go through the entire workflow. So we start off with sculpting. In sculpting, we change the cube, or we use the cube as clay, and we make the shape of our final object. Now this final object has very bad topology since it was sculpted. So we have to retopologize it. Basically, we create quads on the mesh. This allows us to make the materials and paint over this mesh. So once we have retopologized, we UV unwrap it. By UV unwrapping is the process of making a 3D model and projecting it into a 2D plane. This allows us to project 2D images onto our objects or 3D objects. Once we have UV unwrapped it, we can hand paint textures on it and then bake them into single images. Once all of this is done, we add artificial bones through rigging. Now, this allows us to animate our models, basically giving them human-like behavior. And these animations are then used in our games for run, jump, and every other action that happens. Now, finally, these objects are then exported in the form of an FBX file to our desired game engine. Then these are then used as per our requirements in the game engine. All right. So now Joseph will explain the scripting part of the game.
All right, so now I'll explain how the basic workflow of scripting in Unity is done and how to set up a basic character controller. All right, so uh, you can see that I've set up a pretty basic scene with some elements here and there, and I'll have a camera. Okay, so this scene, if I play the scene right now, it'll say that no camera rendering because I don't have a camera here. If you ever encounter it, you can just add a camera, but it'll be there by default. So this is your camera, and now the camera viewers, as you can see, this is what you see from the camera. And while you press play, this is the view of this camera is what you'll be going to see. So now let's create a player. To create a player, create a new object. Let's add a capsule as a player. Uh, and since that's very far apart, reset it back to 0. Now what I'll do is I'll take the camera, and here in the hierarchy window, right, I'll drag the camera onto the player. So now basically this camera is a part of the player. You can see if you move the player, the camera moves along with it, and that's exactly what you want in your game because the camera follows the player. I'll reset the position of the camera and the rotation so that it will look forward. We want our eyes to face forward, right? And so basically now this is what we are going to see. But as of now, it'll just stay there. It's just an object. It won't move. It won't respond to any of our actions. So for that, Unity has something called a character controller. And I've set up a player here with a character controller. I'll just show that to you. Uh, Here, basically you press add component, add character controller. You can add it into the player. So what the character controller does is that it basically handles the movement and collisions of the player. Like when you are walking around in your scene, you might walk into an obstacle, you have to stop there. Or if there's a slope, if the slope is too steep, the player will not be able to climb that. The character controller handles all of that. But it doesn't handle the input. And to handle the input, we'll have to write a C# script. So Yadath earlier explained how to create a script. When you create a script, you will get some. I will switch to the script. All right, so here you can see the script. Uh, in a Unity mono-behavior script, you have it's a class here. If you have learned Java, you might recognize this format because it's C# is actually very similar to Java, and it's not that hard to get started with it. So there's a function called void start, and there's a function called void update. So what happens is that when the scene is created, it will run start once, and then it will run the update function every frame. So basically, things that you want to run once or initialize for the first time, setting the value of variables for the first time, all those you do it in start. And then things that happen continuously, like the character running around, it's continuously moving. All of those you handle in the update function. I'll show you a basic player controller script. This basically handles the movement of the player. Here you can see inside the first I'll show you the update function. Fixed update is basically just like update, but it updates in fixed intervals. And here I'm taking the input. I have the move input function, which the input. Let's say you have a joystick. It's a 2D input, right? Two-dimensional vector. You have up, down, left, right. So the up axis and the right axis, horizontal and vertical axis, are converted into a vector that will point in the direction the player has to move. And then the move function for the controller is called, where we are giving the vector as the input. We are multiplying it by timed or delta time because this actually runs many times per second. Like if you're playing a game, it will be running at 60 frames per second, 120 frames per second. So if we move every frame by a fixed amount, it'll move way too much fast. This timed or delta time is basically the amount of time spent in one frame, and you will move by that amount. And this is basically the controller. This get component is a method that will get the character controller that you attach to the player. Earlier I showed you how you could add a component. So this character controller that will take input, the move input, and it will move the player accordingly. Same way, this is handling gravity as well. Yeah, the Unity's character controller does not handle gravity. You have to make, but it's not hard to do it. It might look intimidating, but it's just create a velocity and increase it by gravity every time. That's how acceleration works. And you can see initially gravity is set to 9.8, which you must have studied in physics. Is 9.8. And in Unity's input system, it's an event-based system. So when you give an input, some functions are called, and this is the move input. When you press WASD keys on your keyboard, this function is called, and this assigns the received input into the move input vector, and that vector is what I'm using to move the player. So I'll switch back to the editor and show you how you integrate both of these. Right. So what you do with the character script is just like how you added the character controller as a component to the character, you add the player controller script as well, the script that I just showed you. And in there, in the start, I've created a variable in the class that a public variable that basically takes in the camera. It's so that it can rotate the camera. So here, all the variables are public, so we can actually public variables we can set it from the editor. Now I'll show you how it handles the input. So in Unity, to handle input, you have to create an input asset. Go to create and create input actions. I'll call it uh, new input. So here action maps create one for the player because this is what will be handling the player one. And first action, let's call it as uh, to keep it simple, I'll call it jump. So what it does is for the player, we can assign different actions, and whenever each action happens, a particular function can be called in the code. So here, for jump action to happen, I can set a key binding to it, and it's pretty easy to set. You just press this, listen. Let's say space can be the jump button. It'll jump. So like this, I've created an asset here. This has move, jump, and look. Move is basically I've assigned WSD here, and the output of move is a vector too. As I said, there is a horizontal and vertical component to a moving input. So forward, backward is vertical input, left, right is a horizontal input, and the output will be a vector that's these two components together. Jump is just a button press. Look is also a vector, but it's actually delta. Basically, delta means how much it moved each frame. It and I've assigned it to the mouse movement. So when you move the mouse, you can look around. In the player, what you do is you add a player input component. This inbuilt component in Unity. In this actions, you basically drag in the input you created. And then here under events, you can assign each of them to functions in your code. You press player. By the way, here default map you have to press set it to player, otherwise it will not work. For all of these, actually, you have to drag in the player object here into this. Set. Now I dragged in the capsule. Under function, you have to go to the script, select the function that takes in the move input. So likewise, you have to assign the jump and look, all of them. So move basically in the code, it just gives a vector as an input to the player. Jump will set the velocity to y velocity to a positive value, which will shoot it upwards, and then gravity will put it back down. Look makes the horizontal look will make the player turn around. The vertical look, which basically looking up and down, will turn the camera up and down. So if I press play with this, you can see that I can move my mouse to look around. By pressing the move buttons, I can move around. So whenever I perform each of these actions, it's invoking the event that we just set. Then it will call the function in that code, and then the code will handle the rest. If we try to walk into this, we can't move as coordination is handled by the character component itself. And yeah, that's basically the input system and the character controller. Sorry. right now. So basically, what happens when you look around is that this is the player, and when you move the mouse left and right, the player as a whole moves. Hence, it's you can see here the camera is under the player. The camera will rotate with the player, and that's how the player moves in the direction. So now we can see these axes are facing the direction we just rotated it to. Blue is z-axis, red is x-axis, green is y-axis, and z is the forward axis of the player. So when you press W on your keyboard to move forward, it moves along the blue colored axis. But when you look up and down, you don't have to rotate the player because that will mess things. So what you do is you only rotate the camera, and to do that you rotate the this is the red one. Red is the x-axis. You change the x-axis of the camera based on the vertical mouse input. And all this is handled by the look event that we've set here. The onLook function in the code, it basically increases the camera's x-axis angle up, increases or decreases it based on the mouse movement. And yeah, that's basically it. And in Unity, there might sometimes be a default one. This input actions was actually there by default. I did not create this, and it'll have some pre-made input events that you can assign to your player. So all of these attack, interact, crouch, jump, there'll be many of them saved inside them. But since for this small project, it's all of this is not needed, so we just need jump, look, and move. Okay, so that's it. That's it for the player movement. I hope you understood how to make your own player controller, at least the workflow. Because once you know the workflow and how to do things, it's very easy to make things and figure things out.
Hello. Yeah, so I'm audible. So before we end this session, let's conclude to DevSOC. So DevSOC'26, a very famous, one of the biggest hackathon led by CodeChef. So I'll just share to you the landing page now. So this is a landing page, and I'll just explain the event now. This is basically a 48-hour overnight hackathon, and you're going to be staying there for 2 nights and 3 days. You basically have to build a product. We have different tracks over here. So I'll just show you the tracks. We have the Hot Foot AI Challenge, the media and entertainment, tech for good, digital economy, and open innovation. So open innovation means you can do anything that you want that does not fall into any of these categories. We have a lot of a very large win prize pool. So you can pick up any of these tracks and make a hackathon. We will have different rounds of reviews, and of course it's a overday event, so you are getting OD for it. And we have very famous and very prestigious speakers with us from Google. So we have Naga Venkata Sahityala and Navya Sharma. We also have Rajesh Venkatasan, a CTO and co-founder and executive director at Hotfoot Technology Solutions. So I suggest everyone to join DevSOC'26 and have a great time learning and innovating. So with that, we conclude our session for today, and good luck to everyone. I highly suggest that you try game development on your own. Look up videos, look up tutorials, and use those game dev knowledges for media and track entertainment. Yeah. So good luck to you guys, and that's a bye from all of us. Bye bye.